Hey, badass business owners, welcome to another episode of the Local Small Business Coach Podcast, where each episode we work on getting you to $100,000 in take-home pay. So if you're all ready to boost your profits, increase your sales, improve your processes, and develop stronger teams so you can stop living job to job, then let's dive in. Hey, badass business owners, welcome back to the show. Today is Thursday. It means we're going to take another look into our business numbers because I'm on a mission. I want to help you become very, very comfortable with your business numbers. And one of the biggest tools that you have is your profit and loss statement. It is by far the one report in your business that you want to make sure you fully understand how to read, because there's so much good information in there that can help you not only just, find opportunities for profit, find opportunities for sales, but it also can help you when it comes to even figuring out, basic bidding. Because a big mistake that everybody keeps making is they say, okay, I can sell this for $100. It's going to cost me $50 for parts. I'm going to make $50. No, you're not. You're not making $50 because there's this big old category on your P&L you're forgetting about, which is your expenses. Another thing that happens is, wouldn't it be nice that if you knew you need to make $3,000 a month, wouldn't it be nice to know how much you need to do in sales? Instead, what we do is we go out there and we say, I roughly have expenses of $1,000. So if I go do my costs are half. So, okay, if I need half, so I need $7,000 because $3,000 is going to come off for costs, $1,000 for that, for expenses. I'll make my $3,000. And then you get to the end of the month and it doesn't quite work that way. Once again, it's because you're not really knowing the numbers. And one of my big reasons why I really want you to understand your P&L is it has the numbers on there that you need, and you can still do the calculation really quick. You just have to know what it is that you're looking for and preparing for. Now, the other thing is it has seasons, especially those of you that have seasonal swings. You're going to have an average number on there that you're going to run. But some months your expenses are going to be higher than others. And it's not so much that the dollars are higher, the percentage of your sales is higher. Because let's just say you have to spend $3,000 a month no matter what. Well, guess what? If you only do $6,000 in sales, $3,000 in expenses is going to be 50%. But if you pull off a $12,000 month and your expenses only go up a little bit more because you have to have more people, more help, more this and that, your expenses might only go up to $5,000, and $5,000 out of $12,000 is less than that 50%. It's about 40%. So it will change, but you need to kind of understand the basics so you can use, even if you just use your average number, it's going to get you a heck of a lot further than what it is that you're doing today. And ideally, if you had written down somewhere every month about what your expenses run or what your cost of goods typically run in that month, your bidding and the things that you do are going to be that much better for you. You just got to understand the percentages within your business. Now, I'm always going to keep repeating the same thing because the more I repeat it, the more you're going to retain it. Remember, your profit and loss has 3 buckets, right? We have our sales buckets, which always goes up to 100%. 100% of our sales, that's our sales bucket. And then from there, you have your cost of goods. Your cost of goods is what it costs you to provide that product or service. And if you have a service-based business, you want to make sure that you're capturing the labor to provide that service. And that includes you paying yourself a fair wage to do that job. And the reason that we do that is because you want to know that if you ever replace yourself or you have to hire someone to do it for you, that it's already built into your cost of goods of knowing how much it costs for someone to do that. So even though you're paying yourself out of the owner's draw at the end of the day, you want to plug in numbers that have to do with that labor on the top half. So this way, if you pay yourself, say, $15 an hour and you hire someone new off the street to do that same job, they just slide right into that $15. And guess what? Your cost of goods don't change that much because all you did is replace a body versus all of a sudden out of the blue, you're trying to create this thin air, this extra profit that you need to be able to pay for that person. And that's what screws so many people up. So you really have pay coming out kind of 2 ways, one in the top half and one in the bottom half. And I talk about all this inside of the course, the the P&L portion of it because I want to make sure that people understand that. But so bucket number 2 is your cost of goods. So cost of goods is going to have a percentage. So let's just say that when you add your labor and the products and everything else, let's just say that comes to 45% roughly. So basically, you know that for every dollar you take in, it's going to cost you 45 cents in cost of goods to be able to provide that. So we know that there's 55 cents left over, right, out of every dollar. And what happens is, like I said, this is where you get to your gross margin. And you've heard me talk about this in the past. And this is where a lot of people stop. And that's where they're like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to charge you $100. It's going to cost me 45. I'm going to make 55 bucks. Okay, that's the part you need to stop doing. So now let's just keep going here. If you look at your expenses on an average, let's just say your expenses come to 35%. Well, if your expenses come to 35%, guess what? Out of that 55%, you're going to lose another, 30. That rest of that 55 cents out of every dollar, you're going to lose another 35 cents out of that 55. So it's really leaving you 20% is the way that kind of works. So it's a big difference if you go into a job thinking you're going to make $55 and, let's just say it's a $100 job, $45 is coming off for costs. Well, if you knew another $35 had to be set aside for your expenses, it's different because now you know that you're going to make $20 really off of that job. And that may not be bad. It might be a half hour. You go in, you do something really quick and you make $20. No big deal. It's $20 an hour. That might be very fair and it's not a problem. So I don't want you to get hung up on 20. It sounds small, but you know what? For something you did in 45 minutes, half hour, that $20 is actually equivalent to making $30-40 an hour. It's not bad at all. The problem is if you don't know what those numbers are, you can't apply them. So this way that you know exactly what those numbers are. Because you got to remember, there's really only the main calculation you want to remember is that sales minus your cost of goods minus your expenses equals your profit and your net profit. And that's kind of what you need to kind of keep in mind as you're going through. So that's what I've been doing in this example, right? We had $100 in sales minus our cost of goods, which was the $45. And we know it's $45 because we know that 45% of the sales goes towards that. We also know that if we plug in for expenses, they're $35, and we know it's $35 because 35% out of the $100 is that number. So that tells us 35, which tells us our profit is 20%, which leads it to $20. Now, of course, that makes it nice and easy because I'm using an easy number like $100. And I'm doing that because, yes, I could use other examples for you and have much fancier numbers that are going to go in there, but I don't think the concept is going to touch you as much. Because if you think about it, 100% and $100, it kind of makes it easier for you to be able to do that math. My main thing is I want you to keep in mind, sales minus cost of goods minus expenses equals profit. And yes, I'll probably say that 10 times more. I want you to learn this calculation, and I'm going to keep using it on our Thursday podcast episodes because I want you to make sure that you understand that. Now, here's why I wanted to do the episode today, because I want to take it a step further. You can take these same numbers that you get off of your P&L, and you can actually use them to figure out how much you need to do in sales to hit the target number that you want. And I'm really excited about this because this is the last video I just did for the course, for the Know Your Business Numbers course, because I've been doing this. I'm wrapping up the section on P&L, and at the last minute, I'm like, no, I want to dive into this deeper. I touch on it a little bit in other parts of the videos, but I was like, I'm going to make one video alone that somebody can walk through, and it really will walk them through how to figure out how much they need to do in sales based off of what they just learned in their P&L. So we're going to use an example. All right. So let's just say that that when you look at your business, you need to make $3,000. You need to take away, after you pay everything to do with the business, you need about $3,000. Now, if you've been doing it right, a couple different things kind of play into that because your pay is actually coming from what's called the owner's draw. It's the money that you're taking out of the business. You're drawing it out. But you heard me say earlier today that you need to make sure that you are budgeting for cost of goods, part of what it is that you want to make. So part of what you have to kind of keep in mind is, while you might take an owner's draw for that labor piece of that, you still want to capture it in your cost of goods. So you want to make sure that you know that number when it's in there. The example I'm going to use is going to assume it's just one owner's draw. So let's just say that the $3,000 you want is above and beyond that. So you collected $1,000 already up in your cost of goods, okay? You paid yourself $1,000 a month out of being a laborer, a doer, if you will, within the business. And at the end of the day, you want to pull out an additional $3,000. Now, is it for you want to pull out $3,000, or you want to have profitability in the company of $3,000? And here's why I say that, because part of what is saved at the end of the day, some of it needs to go to what we call retained earnings. And retained earnings is money that you keep in the business to be able to continue to grow and develop the business. It's cash you can have on hand to get you through the ups and downs of the business. It could be to buy equipment. It could be to expand. It could be for a lot of different things. For example, if you are a very highly seasonal business, your retained earnings are actually going to be much higher in those months because you need to save money for the slower months. So some times of the year, it might be $100, it might be $500, it might be $1,000. And other times, your peak 2 months, it might be $5,000. It might be $10,000 that stays as retained earnings. So you need to calculate that in as part of what it is that you're saving at the end of the day. So in our case, we wanted to have an additional $3,000 of profit. After you paid yourself as a doer, we wanted an additional $3,000 at the end of the day, $500 for retained earnings, and $2,500 for you to pull out of the business from an owner's draw. Well, we know then that our profit of the company needs to be $3,000. So let's assume those numbers I've been using earlier today, the 100% for sales, 45% for COGS, 35% for expenses. We're going to pretend that's our business, okay? And we know our profit needs to equal the $3,000 to be able to hit the different goals that we have set aside. I know I've thrown a lot out there. I've probably already lost a few of you, so just hang in there with me. Remember our calculation. Sales minus cost of goods minus expenses equals our profit. Well, we know what our profit needs to be. We know our profit needs to be $3,000. So that means that if we know our profit is 20% of our business, we therefore know that this $3,000 is 20% of the sales that we have. So all we have to do now is calculate out that if we take our $3,000, we need to figure out the sales that would make it 20% of our business. And the way you do that is you actually take the $3,000 and divide it by the 20%. So if we take the $3,000 and divide it by the 20%, it tells us $15,000 in sales will get us our $3,000. Now, there's a way. I know it's kind of crazy, huh? Just that simple. You just take your profit divided by your profit percentage. That's all you got to do. So if you make 10%, you divide it by 10%. If you make 15%, you divide it by 15%. If your profit tends to run 25%, you divide it by 25%. It's that simple. And the way you can check it is just plug the numbers back in. So if we start at the beginning and put our calculation, sales being 100%, we know our sales are $15,000. We know our cost of goods are 45%, so we just take 45% times the 15,000, and it's going to come up to 6,750. We know our expenses, we need to set aside 35%, so 35% of that 15,000 is 5,250, and guess what? If we take our sales, 15,000, minus our cost of goods, the 6,750, minus our expenses, the 5,250, guess what? We come out to $3,000, which equals the 20% profit that we needed to do. Boom. Crazy, huh? It's that easy. And I say it's easy. It sounds much harder when you're listening to it on a podcast episode. But you kind of get the fact that overall, it is pretty easy. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to include it into that course, and so that you could have a video that you can walk through. And matter of fact, later today, I want to put together a sheet that somebody can print up and use, so that way they can write it down as well. I was thinking about that last night going, even though the video is great, you can kind of follow along. I'm like, if I can create a sheet that allows people to print it up anytime they want to work it out really quick, they could do that. So I'm going to work on that later today. But it's part of that course. It's part of that knowing your numbers, because I'm telling you, if you just understand gross margin really well and you understand your profit and loss statement, your income statement, oh my gosh, knowledge is power, and it just changes so much for you to be able to do this. How great. I mean, how many of you could raise your hand, honestly, if we were in a classroom, if you could really raise your hand and say that you know exactly how much your expenses are at any given time? Believe it or not, a lot of people think they know, but when they dive in, there's so many little ankle biter things that add up to an additional. I sat down with somebody and they're like, oh, I need $2,000. I'm like, okay, what's in that? He rattles it off, and yeah, it comes to $2,000. I'm looking at his P&L and I'm like, would you be surprised to know it's $3,000? What? And then we start showing all these little guys that add up. He goes, oh, wow. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. So all along, he's already starting $1,000 in the hole of the true profit that he needs to be able to cover those expenses, because he's forgetting about all those little ankle biters. And that's what gets people. And this is why it's really important that I want you guys to understand and know your numbers, which is why, like I said last week, I'm leaving the course at the $49. I'm not going to be changing the price anytime soon. If you're listening in the future, it might be different, but right now my goal is just to get you guys in there, because I just think it's going to help you. And to me, I love knowing that number. I sat down with another business owner, and guess what? We took what their profit is that they needed. We worked everything backwards. And actually, I had them work the numbers backwards after we did all this, using our sales minus our cost of goods minus our expenses equals our profit. We figured out their entire number, and boom, they knew exactly what they needed to do. And then we sat there and we started asking ourselves, because now once you know what that number is, you can start asking yourself, how can I achieve that number? You ask yourself different questions. Instead of you chasing every job under the sun, if you know you need to come up with a certain number of dollars, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, you start looking at it differently, going, hey, what are some sales that I can create? What are some goals that I can create that's going to help me get those numbers? And by the way, you can figure that out in your peak seasons, because you can do it in your low seasons and you can figure out in your peak seasons. You can figure out what you need to do in your slower months and what you need to do in your bigger months, so that way you can help offset any losses that you typically have during some of the slower months. You can go through each month and figure that same number out based by just working it backwards. It's a very easy calculation. And like I said, listen, you don't have to love math, but you have to learn to love your numbers. Your numbers are telling you so much good stuff. And here's just another one of those great things that you get to know just by knowing your numbers. I did not use a hard calculation. I just plugged and played. That's all we did. We took sales, cost of goods, expenses, and profit, and we plugged in the percentages we got directly off of the P&L that you're getting every single month, no matter what, just because of what you're keying into your QuickBooks, FreshBooks, whatever program you're using. The report that's being spit out either by your own program or by whatever your accountant's sending over to you, your bookkeeper, whichever direction it is, you have the numbers. All you got to do is transfer those numbers over. Please, whatever you do, have your accountant or whoever prints it up for you give you the percentages of everything. If not, we can show you how to do it. Everything is a percent of sales. You take the dollar amount divided by the sales, boom, you can figure it out. If you did $50,000 in expenses, or excuse me, if you did $50,000 in cost of goods and you had $100,000 in sales, you would just take the $50,000 divided by the $100,000. Everything is based off of 100% sales, so you always divide by that number. But I explain all of this. I know it's a lot of numbers, and I'm going to continue to do it because I've had a lot of people tell me, continue to do the numbers on the podcast, even though it's a little harder to follow along, because at least the information is starting to sink in. You can start asking better questions. That's why I do it. This is why I've dedicated Thursdays to helping you guys with your numbers, and we're going to just keep going over stuff until you continue to have your aha moments looking at stuff. And by the way, if you ever have any success stories of when you are diving into your numbers and you want to shout it out, scream it out, send me an email. I love reading these. I love when you guys tell me the successes that you're finding or even the hiccups or the questions that you have. Shoot it over to me at Tammy, Tammy, Tammy at localsmallbusinesscoach.com, Tammy at localsmallbusinesscoach.com. I love to hear from you guys. So if you've dived into your P&L and you're starting to see some stuff, tell me about it. I love having those shout outs and I love hearing from you guys. So please definitely do that. So I'm hoping this helps out. Once again, just keep in mind sales minus cost of goods, expenses, and profit. Sorry, I had to say it one more time because I've been saying it. All you got to do if you want to know your number, figure out your true profit at the end of the month that you want to have and divide it by the percentage that your profit typically runs. So if your profit typically runs 10%, 50%, 20%, 25%, whatever your profit typically is, at the end of the day, divide your goal by that number, and it's going to let you know where you need to be at the end of the day when it comes to your sales. It's going to tell you how much sales you need to do. And then you can double check your work by plugging in what your percentages are for cost of goods and expenses. You can show that the math still works for you and you did it the right way. That's the best way to do it. Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I'm excited for you guys. I love the fact that you guys are starting to really dive in and understand those business numbers much, much better. All right, with that, I'm out of here and I will talk to you on the next episode. Hey, before you go, if you're looking to learn more about your business numbers, then check out the Know Your Business Numbers course, where we take a deeper dive into the key numbers, the calculations, the reports that will help you take your business to the next level. My mission is to help everyone love their business numbers. Yes, even including those of you that hate math. So much profit is hidden inside of your business numbers, and I want you to create some awesome profits. So check out the link in the show notes or head on over to the knowyourbusinessnumberscourse.com. Once again, knowyourbusinessnumberscourse.com. Come join me. Let's go ahead and work on building your profits.